But then you see these different waves that happen in life, from the industrial revolution to like the tech boom, the internet, like all these things. There's fear around it first, right? There's fear of like, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my ability to make money? Like, I don't view it as something that necessarily is going to take our jobs. I feel like the people that are going to lose their jobs are the ones that don't adopt it. All right, what is up, everybody? Episode 37, Pursuit Balance. We're going to talk about AI and how it's taking all your jobs. No, I'm kidding. But actually, maybe seriously. I've had this conversation with so many people lately, and I've been using AI so much lately, and it's just become more and more of a thought of future, right? Like, especially with me just having a kid, and I don't know. I think about the future a lot, obviously. And the AI revolution is become something that's like fascinated me, and I would say more fascination and excitement than there is fear, but there's a lot of people that I do talk to that have a lot of fear behind it, right? And so I'm just gonna talk on it. I want to talk about like how does AI impact our lives? How do we take the correct steps or action items proactively to understand this transition that's going to happen in life. And then I want to kind of tie it in a little bit into my job with health and fitness and business and finance and stuff that I always like to talk about of like, how can we leverage this? Because there's so many people that are still not using it. Um, and I was in Healdsburg. This is probably 3-4 weeks ago by the time you guys hear this. And we're sitting at a dinner and there's probably like 10 of us there. And I'm talking to my buddy Trev, and he's like, he goes, honestly, I think you might be the only job that's protected. Right? He's like, got everyone here, like all white collars, recruiters, salespeople, whatever, all these different things. He goes, it's going to be interesting to see like how much of this transition is going to eat up like a lot of the workforce, right? So we're just talking about it, and obviously all hypotheticals, but we see this already. We see this transitioning happen. You see this with Amazon layoffs. You see this with Meta layoffs. You see this with companies starting to go through, significant cuts, 10-20% of their workforce. So it's clearly happening, right? But my kind of 2 cents has been like, I think really where people are going to be in trouble are the ones that are not adopting it, not necessarily the ones being replaced on it. Because like there's going to be this transition that happens where we have these agentic AIs, it's interesting because like the part that I find borderline scary and interesting all at the same time is like robotics and AI are like taking off at the same time, right? And like robotics has been a thing for a long time, but it was missing the intelligence behind it to actually make it impactful, right? Like I remember robotics competitions back in high school, right? So like robotics have been there, right? But now you pair these two things together and it's like, whoa, you think about these autonomous vehicles, and then it's like, okay, well now think about the, millions of drivers that have jobs that work for, Uber, Lyft, things like this, semi-truck drivers, etc. Like, is all that stuff going to get replaced? How is that going to be something that these people transition to? So I find it like, like I said, interesting to see like, okay, both of these things taking off at the same time. It's like intelligence. I don't view having more intelligence being a problem, right? Because like, I mean, how many times in society has having more intelligence been a bad thing, right? So, and I think that if we're leveraging this correctly, which I'll touch on a little bit more in a second, that it's a very, very powerful tool that can enhance our life in so many good ways, right? And for me, like, I mean, I've used it so many different things already that's like helped me manage my time and be more efficient. And, so it creates this layer of convenience and efficiency and hyper effectiveness and gives you another thought process if you're asking the right questions. But then there's the robotic side. It's like, okay, like now it's like, okay, it's funny because I think blue collar, for example, was always something when I grew up. It wasn't shit on, but like blue collar jobs were like, yeah, you don't have a college degree, go be a plumber, go be an electrician. A lot of my friends are electricians and plumbers, and I have a lot of trade, right? My dad was, worked at PG&E his whole life, was a lineman, so I have a lot of respect for the blue collar kind of just in trade work itself, right? But it's funny, like the kind of view that it was given, or this like label that it was given, and now it's like, oh shit, like first of all, these guys are making incredible amounts of money, right? Like, I mean, I know electricians making $2, 3, 4, $500,000. These guys at PG&E, I mean, like some of them are killing it. So A, just the financial side, but B, it's like, oh shit, like now these are the jobs that are protected, right? like these are the jobs that like we would thought that like, okay, like out of all jobs that you would think like, okay, this would be go first. It's like, no, these white collar jobs that created AI are actually the ones just being replaced by themselves. Like they're replacing themselves. But I think it also of the management of AI, right? Like, okay, what is that going to do for my generation, for my kids, right? Like, how is AI going to play a role in our life? How is robotics going to play a role in our life? And it's like, that's the part that I kind of been, I don't want to say struggling with, but I would say definitely thinking a lot about like, okay, like what are the impacts that it's going to have in society, right? And, my argument, I was watching this podcast, and it was like a 3-hour podcast on the Diary of CEO. I forget the guy's name that was on it. It was such a good podcast. He had so many good points on it. One thing that he was saying, and I was like telling my wife, I'm like, I've been saying this, is like, I think it replaces a lot of the boring jobs, right? Like what we've done to humans and humanity and society over the last, when you think about like the Industrial Revolution, like what it did for jobs, right? And how it took time. And like, unfortunately, what happened is it moved a lot of money to the top very fast, right? But then you see these different waves that happen in life, from the Industrial Revolution to like the tech boom, the internet, like all these things. There's fear around it first, right? There's fear of like, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my ability to make money? Right? Like, what's worst case scenario? If like I don't have jobs, what is the government going to do? Are we just going to have like a universal banking system, like where we're just like the government and this like socialist approach? Like, does that make sense? Is that something that we want to do? Is like, are we going to have like a ability for like AI and robotics to be able to take care of most of the work that humans did need to do? And I view it as no. Like, I don't view it as something that necessarily is going to take our jobs. I feel like the people that are going to lose their jobs are the ones that don't adopt it, right? Now, I think there's some interesting things in the financial market side of it, of like how expensive it is. So like when you think about the Industrial Revolution, of like building train tracks that last 50 years, right? Or building highways that last, decades. You know, right now it's like we look at AI and the computers that are running them, it's like they need to be replaced every 4 to 6, 4 to 10 years, whatever it is. And like the amount of money that's going into it. So there's a little bit of fear of like the economy for me too, of like, okay, like what is the economy going to do with what this revolution is going through? But the adoption of it is really what I really want to focus on today, because I think that's going to be the thing. It's like, it's such a high leverage item and skill to use, and a partner in crime. Because if you can leverage AI, you can move yourself in front of most people, right? Because there's like this funny chart that I want to say it was Claude, maybe, that they did this cool little research, and probably done through Claude, of like what jobs are impacted, right? You think about bookkeeping, you think about an admin person, you think about an executive assistant, you think about sales, you think about accounting, you think about lawyers, you think about a lot of these white collar jobs. It's like, wow, like there's going to be a point where AI very quickly, if not already, is going to be better at your job than you are. So do you just switch jobs, or do you learn to manage it, or do you learn to leverage it and use it, right? Because maybe instead of taking 10 copywriters in a marketing department, maybe it takes one person managing the AI to do the copywriting. So like that's where I see this, a lot of this transition. But what's the point of me having this conversation? What's the point of you even listening to this? It's like, I think for some people, it's an important thing to start having some thought process behind. And I think most people that are probably listening to this are probably living in the area of Mountain View, Palo Alto, San Jose, and Silicon Valley. So we're way ahead of the majority of the country, and the majority of probably the world too. But Claude shared this chart, and it was like showing the amount of people that don't use it, right? So it was like almost like 90% of people don't even use AI, right? And then out of the chunk, the 10% that did use it, majority of them are only using a free subscription, right? And then the other ones maybe are paying, like myself, 20, $40 a month for a couple different services, and actually trying to leverage it to a little bit more of a higher capacity or higher use case for, what you're actually using AI for. But I do think about like, okay, that statement of like, my job's protected. I don't view, and I was talking to my other client, he's CEO of a big company, and he goes, oh yeah, you'll be fine, right? He goes, there's going to be a lot of things like even in my company that like we're making already those transitions. We're laying people off. We're also, promoting people to then become, moving up basically in a status of like the management tier, to then run these systems and leverage this thing. So I like, why I say it's important to share is because for me, like the jobs that like I do fear that do go away quickly, right? Or the jobs that do get replaced, like I think it's an important thing for those humans and these people, or if you're someone listening to this that is in that position, to like think about like what really fulfills you, right? Like what are the things that fulfill you? Because what is going to be the most important thing? And we've already seen this with technology, right? We've already seen this with social media. Like the biggest problem I have with technology, the biggest problem I have with social media, is we thought that it was going to be a way for us to connect more to people, right? Which in the era, I mean, of social media, when social media first started off, for example, it was. You're taking selfies, you're talking to friends, you're messaging. Now it's like this algorithmic, it's basically all the algorithm. It's just feeding you what you think you want to see and you need to see based off the things you're viewing. So it's like rare to even see a lot of like your own friend stuff sometimes. You're watching more, majority of the content you see is other people. It's people you don't know. There's people you maybe idolize. There's people you create all these weird things for. And that's where I think it can become unhealthy, is because the thing that we thought was going to bring humans closer by the ability to have more connection points or more time to connect is also the same thing that's taken us away from human interaction, right? Like the most important thing humans need is they need connection, they need community, and they need it in real life, right? Like the idea of a phone was cool because I can call somebody that lives across the country. The idea of FaceTime is now I can visually see my mom or dad. I keep trying to convince them, like, get rid of the damn Android. So I could do a FaceTime. The idea of social media, like my parents, for example, my mom, and I would say most of my relatives on both sides, like I love your social media. It's just nice. Like they just like seeing me do stuff, right? So like there are so many different elements that I think allow us to create connections. So I don't want to disregard that. I think social media is obviously powerful in a lot of ways, but I think it also is more dangerous than not. And I fear this already with like Gen Z, right? Like there was a stat that I was just reading on last week. There was like Gen Z, obviously we've heard this with drinking, like how the alcohol industry's lost like 800 million or billion, or probably million, I would assume. Like 800 billion sounds like a lot. $800 million last year, just from like previous years. Like basically people are starting to drink less. I'm not here to promote drinking, but I also think that like the promotion of social connection, if that requires you going out to drink to connect with people, that I promote, right? Like look at other countries. Like that's how it was. Like we were talking about that. My wife and I were in Italy. It's like everyone's out. It's like it's 1 a.m. It's noon. People are having a glass of wine. They're chit chatting. They're connecting. They're doing what humans are supposed to do. That's what I fear with Gen Z is like, okay, like that there's an aspect that like remote work. Scott Galloway talks about this. Remote work and not drinking is the two worst things that happen to this generation. Remote work is taking us away from having the ability to connect with others. Yes, it sounds more efficient. I don't need to sit in traffic. I get to work from home, so I get to have leisure. I don't have to get ready for work. It saves time. It's more efficient. I'm going to tell you this. My wife works way more than she should because she works at home. She starts at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and she doesn't finish till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night sometimes. She's working 12, 14-hour days. Is it efficient? No, I would challenge her. I don't think it's the most efficient, right? I'd much rather go sit in an hour and a half of traffic and go work for 8 hours max and then go home and not work anymore. Like, I'd rather have, like, I was just talking to Elliot about that. Like, they just got a new office for their work. And I was like, hey, like, having these different environments that we get to spend time on, I think from the mental side of it is like an environmental change, right? I think it's good for us to do so. So he talks about that, like, and also his like little roundup fact is like 1/3 of relationships come from work, meaning like 1/3 of marriages come from meeting each other at work. I met my wife at work. I met my wife in person at work. Second thing is not drinking because of the aspect that people are not connected anymore. People are just living on the internet, right? And we see this even with like streaming right now. Like streaming's become more popular lately, and it's like it's a way for there's a term for it, but it's like it's a degree of social connection. Like these streamers are literally talking to these people on a chat. But I'm thinking about all the other fucking people at home. But you're just sitting watching somebody live their life for 2, 3 hours, right? Like, and just sitting there and like connecting, like, hey, ask this person this question. I think it's weird, but like it's the generation we live in. So kind of moving to the AI or back to AI, like I think about like, okay, AI is going to be able to make things more efficient. It's going to be able to take maybe some of these boring tasks that I don't think humans should be able to do, right? Or should be doing. They're not creative. Like they're not an outlet. Like as a human, we are happiest when we're in a mode of creation, not a mode of consumption. When you're consuming, you are naturally going to become more stressed over time. You're naturally going to become more unhappy because all you're doing is becoming a consumer. When you're a producer, when you're creating, when you're building, when you're allowed to be creative, my biggest thing that I have is a fear for humans that I see all the time with adults is kids are creative because they're allowed to be. They're encouraged to be. And then adults, as we become older, I always say that like the really high energy creative adults are just the kids that stayed kids. Like they kept the same mindset. And I like that's something for me that I for me is I'm very, very strong on is like I don't want to grow up. I don't want to mature. I don't want to fit into the mold of what a human's supposed to be or how you're supposed to talk. My not my basically my wife's nanu, so my wife's grandpa was get a pacemaker put in a couple weeks ago, and he was telling the doctor about my gym, and the doctor's like, "Oh, I would love to send him some places or send him some clients." And he goes, "I love his gym, I love his model, I saw his content. The only thing I can give him is like maybe have him cuss less, you know?" And I was laughing because I was like, I do cuss a lot. That's definitely a problem of mine, but whatever, problem or not a problem, it's just all how you view it. But like, I don't want to be confined. I want to be creative. I want to be me, right? Like, and I always say that, like, I'd much rather offend a couple people along the way being myself, right? Than trying to mold myself to be like make other people happy. Like, there's just, there's going to be casualties of war when you are yourself and you are creative. So coming back to that, it's like, is like someone being an admin behind a desk or like being an accountant where you just take numbers in, put them in a sheet, do like, maybe there's people out there that find that enjoying, but I would imagine that most people, because just in my experience, I know more people that I work with client wise that are very stressed, that do not enjoy their work, that have so much like the Sunday scary mentality. They have so much animosity towards like, I just don't want to do it, right? Like I don't have that feeling. I get to be creative. I get to build. I get to connect with people. I get to be social. I get to help other people be better. I touch on this all the time. I'm cocky about it. My job's the best, right? And I think there's so many people that are in outlets that are similar to mine, not like being a trainer or a gym or a business owner, but like just like where they're allowed to be themselves. They're allowed to be creative. Like there's a passion behind it. I'm going to a workshop next week, but by the time you guys hear this, I've already gone to it. But I'm going to a workshop next week in Vegas, and it's like 2 8 or 9 hour days, and it's like a business scaling workshop. And it's a guy that I've touched on and followed for a very long time. And he says this, and there's another business guy that I kind of follow that I respect a lot. They both say like, don't like follow your passions. And I've hated that. I'm like, why? Like, why not monetize your passions? Why not like make your work something you enjoy doing? Right? Like, why not get rid of the boring shit? Like, my wife's a recruiter. She's good at it. She would say she likes it. I don't want to say that she doesn't. I think she does like it. She likes have. I think what's not necessarily so much the job. I think it's her ability to have impact on her company. Like she is the reason why people get to join her company to work for Backblaze, right? She is the reason why people have a good experience with onboarding. She's the reason why the company gets to grow, right? Like she is investing into the human capital side of it. So I think there's a lot of empowerment or happiness and fulfillment that comes from like having an impact on it. The idea of being a recruiter, like let me go through sourcing LinkedIn all day and following up with people and doing letdown calls, like there's probably plenty of her job that I would say that she would probably say she dislikes. And for me, the way I look at it, I'm like, why would you not just get rid of those jobs? Why would you not? Like, that's something I would replace with AI. That's something I would replace with robotics. Like the idea of being a semi truck driver. I don't want to speak for anybody that is doing this. If you do enjoy it, like to each their own. But like, I could imagine like being away from your family all the time and sitting down and driving all day, and like that being something that's enjoyable, right? Now, like I said, I'm not going to touch on. I don't want to be, insensitive to some people that maybe they do enjoy the job, but like I do see that with AI and robotics of like, okay, maybe we're getting rid of the jobs that humans weren't meant to do. And maybe that's a good thing. Like that's me being optimistic about it. That's me thinking about like this next generation, this next wave of what's going to happen. Like maybe we're getting rid of the boring stuff. Maybe we're getting rid of the stuff that doesn't get humans to be creative, and like I think about that with even talking to Elliot all the time, like the videographer, him and Chaz. It's like, videography and photography is like it's an aspect of being an artist. Like you get to the way you shoot, the angles, the lighting, the way you do your edit, the way you get to be creative with your storytelling. Like it's a creative outlet, right? And I think that's such an important thing for humans to chase, right? Like that's where I think this kind of transition in life is going to happen for society, because some people are going to learn to adopt AI and adopt robotics and create leverage out of it, become more effective, become more efficient. Maybe we can work less. Like maybe we're not working 30, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Maybe we can do the same work with 20, 30 hours a week. And maybe we can spend more time with our family. Maybe we can spend more time with our kids. Maybe we can miss less games. Maybe we can spend more time at home cooking. Like, I don't know. Like I view that like there's a lot of good things that come from it. But it's the same thing. Like there's good and bad for everything. Like social media was like, it had good intent of like, it's a way for us to connect. And now it's like, okay, there's a lot of negatives that come from it too, because it's toxic on the content that is being shared. right? And now I think like most of the stuff we see is like it's becoming AI slop by the day, right? It's like how do we know what's real? Right? Like I even think about that with AI a lot with just information. Like I think about that with content. It's like the idea that, and I just kind of preach this to the team, and I think most people underutilize this. The idea of building a personal brand is such an important thing in life nowadays. But like storytelling, right? Like tell your story. People don't need to hear facts anymore. Like I think when it comes to knowledge, it's like just go talk to chat, like Gemini, whatever call it. Like they'll answer the question faster than I can, and probably with more data and more research. So it's like storytelling, and I think personal branding and like those things, like that's going to be impactful, right? Um, so whatever. I know this is kind of like a very random episode, but it's been on my mind so much lately of like what are going to be the reality of society? Like what are the things that are going to change for us? And personally, I view more of it optimistically than I do pessimistically. Is there a fear that people lose their job and unemployment rate goes through the sky? Yeah. Is there a fear that like society has to become a very socialistic approach and the government has to support us just because all jobs are gone? Yeah. Is there a fear maybe that AI and robots take over and we have a Terminator? Like, yeah. But like I personally like I don't want to spend my energy thinking about worst case scenario or pessimistic points of view. I'd rather view it of like how can I leverage it, right? So the what I want to kind of now transition to is like I'm gonna just share what I leverage it for and what I use it for and what you guys can use it for. Most importantly, like thinking about optimizing your life and health. Like right now, I say this to the team. You used to get paid for providing a level of knowledge, giving people structure, and then most importantly, holding them accountable to it, and then results doing the motivating. That's kind of the four pillars and principles that I've operated my job and career with. Knowledge now is so accessible so quickly. And I tell the coaches, I'm like, use it. Like, sometimes like there's this statement and feedback that like I don't want to feel like a fraud that I'm like not giving the information from me. But I'm like, here's my challenging statement to that. Everything you learned in your life came from somebody else. Like, just remember that. I learned everything from certifications, workshops, teachers, parents, friends. Nothing, well, maybe not nothing. That's an absolute. Majority of all things came from other people. There's a very small amount of things that I'm like, oh, I went through my own experience in my own thought process and my own level of critical thinking to make up my opinion. But a lot of that was influenced by outside sources. So like, what's the difference? Like if you can use things to make your nutrition planning quicker, like right now, it's like, I'm going to tell you right now, you can go get a nutrition plan if you're someone that wanted a calorie count, a macro, a full on meal plan. Like you literally just talk to it and say, hey, I'm 100, for me, I'm 200 pounds. I would like to be 190. I would like to reduce my body fat maybe by about 4%. I train 4 or 5 days a week. I would like to get back into some more aerobic stuff. But write me a nutrition plan. I'm somebody that likes a light breakfast and a medium-sized lunch and a bigger dinner. I want to be mindful of my sleep, so the timing of it. So give me the timing of the meals. These are the foods that I dislike. These are the foods I like. Just give it. The more you can be detailed with it, boom, you have a full like weekly breakdown, daily breakdown, macro breakdown. Like it's so on the money. It's hard to beat. Training, right? Like if you're someone that's like, what do I do on the off days? How do I structure my programming? Like leverage this stuff, right? Like use this stuff to actually assist you. And then when you think about the planning side of it, right? Like I was talking to a client of ours in Palo Alto, and there's a system called OpenClaw. Some of you guys might know it, but it's like, it's like agentic AI where people are basically buying Mac Minis, plugging it in, and this thing's like running on its own computer. There's this funny story of this guy who was on a podcast, and he was saying that like he gave his OpenClaw, his agent, everything. He gave him his, schedules, his logins, his credit card information. And as he was going through building something and ended up buying a $3,000 course with his credit card because it was trying to learn a skill that it was trying to be prompted to. And he was like, well, so don't put your credit card there. So obviously don't share information. I don't know if that needs to be reminded, but I guess it does. Like don't share banking information. Don't share personal information. But like whatever, coming back to the story of the client, Paul Alto, he was like, oh, it's almost like not an executive assistant. That's almost an understatement. But he's like, I had an OpenClaw book a reservation for dinner for me and my wife. Like he has its own phone number on WhatsApp. So he's like talking to it. It's like its own agent, its own sidekick, its own executive assistant. Like there are so many cool things coming. Right now for my business, I have, we used to call it FLAT, which is like functional lifestyles athletic training. And it's basically like, it was 2 days, 8 hours each, 8 to 6 hours, of manpower time. Like I needed to go take a whole weekend out of my life every time I brought on a new coach to onboard them, right? To teach them our philosophy, our model, our movement screen, our patterns of movement, how to coach mobility, nutrition, blah, 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 blah. I have been working with Manus AI, and I probably have spent maybe 5, 6 hours and I haven't typed a single word. I've just been on speaker touching this thing, and I have about 98 slides right now. And I've now have like, or I'm going to have Functional Lifestyles Academy level 1. And then after that, I'm going to be building a kind of sales marketing one. And then I'm going to have a level 2 for coaches that are like tier 4, tier 5. So I'm building all this like continued education programming inside, and it's interactive. It has quizzes. I'm even building videos with VO with it. Like there's so many cool things that we can be using AI. And to be honest with you, I think I maybe understand 10 or 20% of it. There's so much shit that I just don't understand. Right now it's like we do when people are doing assessments, they have to fill out the paper. And then when they sign up, I basically send an email introducing them to their check-in coach, which I have to type out all their information, and I take the paper information and I enter it into the coach's Google Sheet, master sheet, first name, last name, phone number, and then I make a check-in tab and I enter the movement screen scores, I enter their in-body scores. So everything's digital once they're signed up. That's a lot of time, right? And if I'm signing up 40 people a month, it's a lot of time. And it's like now, it's like, I was telling that to Amanda last couple weeks. I was like, I need your help because she works at Google. I was like, I want your help to like, how do I get like a Google form to automatically integrate with the Google Sheet? And she's like, oh, that's easy. We can do that stuff. Or like Notebook LM to like do check-in stuff. So I use that as something that like some people are going to hear this and be like, I don't give a shit about this subject. And then some people are going to get really, really geeked out and excited like I have. I've like found this like another gear of motivation just with business because there was like a period and it literally was a quick transition. I would say about a month ago, I was telling this to Cisco, and it was like it was a slow week with just clients, people gone, but like I just didn't have a lot of like outside work projects. I like to be busy, and I felt bored, and boredom scares me because like not boredom, like I think boredom has its time and place, but like I felt bored with work. I didn't feel fulfilled, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, what do I need to work on? Like what can I proactively start working on? I started getting into this build out of what I was just talking about, and I'm just like, oh, I'm like every day I'm excited to go work on it. I'm like, hey, let's go, go manipulate it. Let's go at it. And it's just like, it's working better than anybody I can ever hire. And it's like scary, but cool, but also empowering, right? So it's like now I'm allowed to enhance my education for my coaches, right? So I can enhance the service that the coaches provide to you guys as clients, right? So it's like, I think it's going to lift everything up. I think there's going to be some negatives that always fall in place. I'm a little, skeptical of like the financial aspect of it is like the amount of money being spent building out this stuff, the amount of money that goes into it, the amount of demand that these systems of energy and electricity and all these things, the amount of replacement costs that are going to come with it. Like I'm a little skeptical of how propped up this kind of might be right now. But I think obviously in the long term, when you zoom out long enough, that I think like this is going to be a really, really cool revolution. And I think it's going to be a really positive thing for most people. But I think just like anything else, it's how you use it and how you leverage it. But yeah, so just to wrap it up, I mean, like I said, AI and robotics, obviously they're on their way. And, I was telling this to my wife actually with the robotics. I didn't touch on robotics much, but like I'm was telling this to Billy and Paul Otto. He's like, he's phasing himself out of front desk work. I'm like, honestly, I don't think I'm going to hire a front desk person. Hopefully by then I can have a robot that can be cleaning the gym. Right? Like instead of paying you minimum wage, right, or $20 an hour to do your front desk duties, I'd much rather you go make $70 an hour coaching a client, right? I'd much rather you go make more money, go do that for something that's more fulfilling for you. And I'd rather go, pay $500 to lease a robot to have that thing clean. So there's a lot of things I tell my wife. I was like, well, like instead of me doing laundry or me cleaning the house, what if we got a robot? She's like, I don't want a robot in the house. I was like, all right. Just saying. But whatever. I think about this with like the autonomous vehicles and things like, hey, maybe it's going to give people the ability to work for the time on the way to work instead of sitting in a car, right? And driving and sitting in traffic and, being frustrated. It's like, hey, Tesla's already coming out with cars that don't even have steering wheels. I think there's a lot of positives if we choose to focus on the positive. But I do look at this as such a big revolution. Like I was even talking about this with just financial planning of like, a lot of this area, so many people that made their wealth with the tech boom and so many people that made their money with like this enterprise value and equity and shares and like these companies that have blown up. And there's so many of them that have failed. And I view this of like, man, it's going to be a really, for my generation and this generation, like it's going to be a great opportunity. It's going to be a great opportunity to like really invest in this part of growth of what's going to happen because like it's happening world around. Like there was just this video that got released and I think it was in China and we're doing like this full like demonstration of the robots. I mean, they're doing backflips, they're doing like karate kick. I mean, you could not tell the difference between that and a human almost. Like scary how good this stuff is getting. So I think as long as it's in the right hands, I think as long as it's used for the right case, I think it's going to be a really, really cool thing. All right. All right, guys. Well, I'm done rambling on about that subject. I hope you guys got some value. And if you, you know, feel that you got some value out of AI and you know more than I do, hit me up because I'm still trying to learn everything. All right. See you guys.